The crimson suns of Nexora cast long shadows across the ruins of what had once been a thriving human colony. Commander Valeria of the Elite Guardians surveyed the battlefield from the ridge, her massive armored form silhouetted against the alien sky. Her crystalline armor, awarded only to those who had slain 100 humans, glinted with an internal light that matched the cold determination in her amber eyes. "Commander, we've cornered the last resistance fighter in the Western Quadrant," reported Lieutenant Drez, her second in command. "He's alone." Valeria's lips curled into a smile that never reached her eyes. "One human, and your squad couldn't handle him." Drez's four-fingered hand tightened on his plasma rifle. "He's not like the others, Commander. He's taken down 15 of our soldiers single-handedly." 15 Nexorans killed by one human. Valeria scoffed, though something stirred inside her, perhaps curiosity, perhaps the thrill of a worthy opponent after years of easy victories. "I'll handle this myself. A high command wants a spectacle to commemorate our final victory." As she descended into the ruins, Valeria activated her armor's enhanced capabilities. The crystal plating that covered her tall, athletic form hummed with energy, forming an impenetrable barrier that had never been breached in her 12 years of combat. Unlike the exaggerated tales humans told of Nexorans, she had the same number of limbs as they did, 2 arms, 2 legs, though her skin bore the distinctive cobalt markings of her warrior caste. The human waited in the center of what had once been a town square. Valeria paused, surprised by his appearance. She had expected a desperate, cornered animal. Instead, he stood calmly, a man of average height with dark skin and eyes that reflected the dying light like still water. He held only a simple combat staff made of some material she didn't recognize. "I am Commander Valeria of the Elite Guardians," she announced, her translator converting her words to the human language. "You have fought well, but your resistance ends today." The human, Kai, she would later learn was his name, simply nodded. "I've been waiting for you, Commander. Your soldiers said you were unbeatable." They spoke truth. Valeria activated her crystal sword, the energy blade extending from her gauntlet with a hum. "Do you surrender?" "That depends," Kai replied, shifting his weight slightly, "on whether you're ready to hear the truth." Valeria laughed, the sound echoing metallically through her armor. "Your species always talks too much before dying." She attacked with the speed and precision that had made her legendary, expecting to end the confrontation with a single blow. But Kai moved like water, flowing around her strikes with a grace that seemed impossible. The watching Nexoran soldiers murmured in disbelief as the battle continued far longer than anyone had anticipated. Frustration building, Valeria unleashed her full strength, driving Kai back with a flurry of attacks that would have overwhelmed any opponent she'd ever faced. Yet still he evaded, never striking back, studying her movements with those unnervingly calm eyes. "Fight me, human," she roared, her composure cracking. "I am," he replied simply. And then, in a move so fast she barely saw it, Kai struck, not wildly, not desperately, but with perfect precision at a single point where her armor plates joined near her heart. A sound like breaking glass echoed across the square. Valeria stumbled backward, watching in horror as cracks spread across her crystalline armor, pieces falling away to reveal the vulnerable bodysuit beneath. Impossible. No weapon had ever. Before she could recover, Kai was standing before her, his staff poised for a killing blow. The Nexoran soldiers raised their weapons, but Valeria held up her hand, stopping them. Death was preferable to the shame of being saved by her subordinates. But the killing blow never came. Instead, Kai lowered his staff and said words that would haunt her dreams. "You were never fighting me, Commander. You were fighting yourself." Confusion and rage warred within Valeria as she struggled to comprehend both her defeat and his mercy. With a roar, she lunged forward, grabbing him with her still armored hand. "Take him to the holding cells," she ordered Drez, her voice tight with controlled fury. "This human has earned the right to a proper interrogation before execution." As they led Kai away, his eyes never left hers, as if he could see through the remnants of her shattered armor straight into her core. And for the first time in her life, Commander Valeria felt truly exposed. The holding cell beneath the Nexaran command base was designed to break humans, both physically and mentally. Stark lighting that never dimmed, air kept deliberately thin and cold, and constant low-frequency sound meant to disrupt human thought patterns. Yet, as Valeria observed Kai through the monitoring system, he sat in perfect meditation, seemingly at peace despite his imprisonment. She touched the patch of synthetic skin covering the spot where her armor had shattered. The medical unit had repaired the physical damage, but nothing could repair the wound to her reputation. News of her broken armor had spread through the ranks like wildfire. The execution is scheduled for 3 planetary rotations from now, Lieutenant Drez informed her, standing at attention in her private chambers. High Command has ordered a public display to counter any unfortunate rumors. Valeria's fingers tightened around the edge of her desk. Leave me. When Drez had gone, she activated the private channel to the cell. Why didn't you kill me when you had the chance? She demanded without preamble. Kai opened his eyes slowly, looking directly at the hidden camera as if he could see her through it. Because death isn't what either of us needs, Commander. And what is it you think I need, human? Her voice dripped with contempt, but beneath it lay genuine curiosity. The same thing I needed once. To question. Valeria shut off the communication abruptly, her breathing uneven. She had never questioned. Not her purpose, not her orders, not the war that had raged since before her birth. Nexarans were the superior species. Humans were the invaders who had attempted to colonize their worlds. These were the foundational truths upon which her life was built. Yet that night, sleep eluded her. Kai's words echoed in her mind. You were never fighting me. You were fighting yourself. What did he see that she did not? The next morning, she dismissed the guards from the detention level. I will handle the prisoner's interrogation personally, she announced, ignoring their surprised expressions. Her authority, though dented, remained absolute. Kai looked up as she entered his cell, his expression revealing nothing. You've caused quite a problem for me, Valeria said, circling him slowly. Without her armor, wearing only the fitted command uniform, she felt oddly vulnerable despite towering over him. My entire unit witnessed my defeat. Is that what happened? Kai asked. A defeat. You broke my armor. No one has ever done that. The armor was already broken, Commander. I just showed you where the cracks were. Anger flared within her. In one swift motion, she grabbed him by the throat, lifting him from the floor with her superior strength. Stop speaking in riddles. Kai didn't struggle, even as her grip tightened. His eyes, deep brown with flecks of gold, held hers steadily. Your people didn't tell you the truth about us, did they? About why we came to Nexaran. You came to conquer, as humans always do, she replied automatically, but something in his gaze made her hesitation. She released him, stepping back. Who told you that story? Kai asked, rubbing his throat. The same ones who told you that armor made you invincible. Valeria turned away, unsettled. You know nothing of Nexaran history. I know that history is written by those in power, he replied. And I know what Earth's records say about the first contact between our worlds. Lies, she said, but with less conviction than she'd intended. Kai approached her slowly, his hands visible to show he meant no harm. The execution is in 3 days, yes. Before you kill me, let me show you something. Against her better judgment, Valeria found herself asking, what? The truth, hidden in your own archives. Records from before the war that your high command has suppressed. His voice dropped lower. Unless you're afraid of what you might find. That night, against all protocol and reason, Valeria accessed the ancient database terminals using her commander's override. She told herself it was merely to disprove the human's claims, to strengthen her resolve before his execution. Hours passed as she dug deeper than she'd ever gone, past the official histories and into encrypted files that hadn't been accessed in generations. What she found shook her to her core. The dawn cycle found her back in Kai's cell, her face ashen, her hands trembling slightly. "You knew," she accused him. "How could you know what was in our sealed archives?" "Because 12 years ago, I was part of a diplomatic team sent to restore communication between our worlds," Kai explained quietly. "Before your military leaders had us all killed, all except me." Valeria sank onto the bench opposite him, her worldview crumbling around her. The archives had confirmed it. Humans had not come as conquerors, but as allies, responding to an ancient distress signal. The war had been manufactured by a Nexaran military faction that had seized power during the crisis. "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered. "Why me?" For the first time, Kai's formal demeanor softened. He reached out, his fingers stopping just short of touching her hand. "Because I saw something in you during our fight. You don't move like someone who enjoys killing. You move like someone fulfilling a duty." He paused. "And because I've been watching you for years, Commander Valeria, long before you knew I existed." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. In that moment, with the truth laid bare between them, Valeria realized that the human she'd been ordered to execute had seen through not just her armor, but all the layers of propaganda and duty she'd wrapped around herself like protection. And for the first time in her life, Commander Valeria began to question everything. The storm came without warning, sweeping across the Nexaran plains with violent intensity. Purple lightning split the sky, and winds howled with enough force to damage even the sturdy command base. Commander Valeria had been forced to make a rapid decision: evacuate with the main contingent or remain at the outpost with a skeleton crew to maintain essential systems and guard the prisoner. She chose to stay, though she couldn't fully explain why, not to Lieutenant Drez, who looked at her with thinly veiled suspicion, and certainly not to herself. "The prisoner remains my responsibility," she had said. "I will see this through to the execution." Now, as the power fluctuated and the base shuddered under the storm's assault, Valeria found herself once again in Kai's cell, but this time with data tablets spread between them on the floor. The emergency protocols had disabled the surveillance systems, giving them a rare moment of true privacy. "This proves nothing," she insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. As she scrolled through the ancient logs Kai had helped her locate. "Even if humans initially came in peace, your kind has been fighting us for generations now." "Fighting back," Kai corrected gently. "After your military leadership assassinated our diplomatic corps and framed us for attacking your civilian centers." His fingers brushed against hers as he reached for one of the tablets, and she noticed herself not pulling away. "Look at the casualty reports from the first 5 years. Compare them to the official history." Valeria did, and the discrepancy was impossible to ignore. The numbers had been systematically altered, civilian deaths attributed to human aggression, when the original reports clearly indicated Nexaran military weapons signatures. "Why would our leaders do this?" she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Power," Kai said simply. "Your world was facing environmental collapse. The military faction used the human arrival as an opportunity to seize control, promising protection against an outside threat." A particularly violent gust shook the building, causing the lights to flicker and die. Emergency illumination bathed the cell in a soft blue glow that made Kai's dark skin look almost Nexaran. In the dimness, the differences between them seemed less significant. "The backup generators should activate soon," Valeria said, suddenly aware of how close they were sitting. Without the harsh standard lighting, the cell felt less like a prison and more like a shelter from the storm raging outside. And the one building within her. "You're not what I expected," Kai admitted after a moment of silence. "When I tracked you across 3 systems, I thought you were just another zealot." Valeria's head snapped up. "You tracked me. So our encounter wasn't chance." Kai shook his head. "I came to Nexara for you specifically, Commander. Of all the elite guardians, your tactical records showed something different. You killed efficiently, but never excessively. You protected civilians, even human ones, when you could do so without disobeying orders. You broke my armor on purpose, she realized. You studied me, my fighting style, my armor's design. I needed you to listen, he said. And Nexarans in your position only listen to those they respect. The admission should have angered her, being manipulated, targeted, studied like prey. Instead, Valeria felt an unexpected warmth spreading through her chest. No one had ever seen her so clearly, looked past her rank and reputation to the person beneath. The storm intensified, and the temperature in the cell began to drop as the environmental systems struggled. Without thinking, Valeria moved closer to Kai for warmth. "Does your kind experience cold as we do?" she asked, noticing the slight tremor in his hands. "More acutely, I think," he answered with a small smile. "Your species evolved on a world with more extreme temperature variations." Hesitantly, she extended her arm, opening the thermal layer of her uniform. "Body heat is more efficient than waiting for the systems to restart." Kai's surprise was evident, but he didn't refuse. As they sat with shoulders and sides pressed together under the shared warmth of her thermal layer, Valeria became intensely aware of his breathing, his heartbeat, slightly faster than a Nexarin's, and the strange comfort of his presence. "Tell me about Earth," she found herself asking. Not the military briefings, but what it's really like. And so he did. For hours as the storm raged, Kai spoke of forests and oceans, of human cities built to accommodate nature rather than dominate it, of art and music, and a culture that celebrated diversity. Valeria listened, mesmerized, occasionally asking questions that revealed how deeply Nexaran propaganda had distorted her understanding of humans. "I wish I could show you," he said finally, his voice low and intimate in the darkness. "There are places on Earth that would remind you of ancient Nexara before the environmental collapse." "I've never seen old Nexara," she admitted. "Only historical simulations." Their eyes met, and Valeria felt something shift between them, a barrier dissolving. Before she could think better of it, she raised her hand to his face, her fingers tracing the unfamiliar contours with gentle curiosity. His skin was warmer than hers, softer in texture. Kai remained perfectly still, his eyes never leaving hers, allowing her exploration without advancing it. When her fingers brushed his lips, his breath caught. "Your execution is tomorrow," she whispered, the words painful in her throat. "I'm supposed to carry it out myself." "I know," he replied quietly. "I don't want to," she confessed, the admission feeling like another piece of armor falling away. Kai's hand rose to mirror hers, fingers carefully tracing the cobalt markings along her cheekbone. "Then don't." The simple words hung between them, heavy with implication. Defying the execution order meant treason. Treason meant death, or worse, mind-wiping and reconditioning. Yet as Kai's fingers intertwined with hers, as the distance between them decreased until she could feel his breath against her skin, Valeria realized that some form of her would die either way. Either she would kill the man who had shown her truth and lose herself in the process, or she would choose him and lose everything she had ever known. As their lips met, tentatively at first, and then with building intensity, Valeria made her choice. The storm had passed, leaving an unnatural stillness across the Nexaran landscape. Commander Valeria stood at the viewport of her private quarters, watching as the transport ships descended through the atmosphere. High Command representatives coming to witness the execution of the last human resistance fighter, coming to watch her prove her loyalty. Behind her, Kai sat on the edge of her sleeping platform, free of restraints, no longer a prisoner but not yet free. She had smuggled him from his cell during the night cycle, using her override codes to blind the security systems. A decision that, once discovered, could never be explained away. "The ships will dock in less than an hour," she said, not turning around. "Dres suspects something. He's been monitoring my communications, my access to the archives." Kai approached, his footsteps nearly silent. Despite everything, she marveled at how differently he moved compared to any Nexaran. fluid and balanced, conserving energy with each motion. When his hands settled on her shoulders, she leaned back against him, allowing herself this moment of weakness. "Come with me," he said against her ear. "There's still a human outpost in the Sarin Nebula. We could reach it before they realize we're gone." Valeria closed her eyes. "My ship only has clearance to leave orbit with proper authorization codes. They'd shoot us down before we reached the atmosphere." "Then we need a different plan," Kai said, turning her to face him. "You have allies here, whether you realize it or not. Not every Nexaran believes the propaganda." She shook her head. "You don't understand our society. Dissent isn't tolerated, even in thought." "Yet here you are," he said softly, his hands framing her face, dissenting quite thoroughly. Despite everything, she smiled. This, too, was new, the way he could coax expressions from her that had lain dormant for years. "Perhaps I'm simply compromised by prolonged exposure to a human. Is that what we're calling it now?" His thumb traced her lower lip, and Valeria felt heat rising to the surface of her skin, the cobalt markings along her cheekbones darkening with her body's response. They had crossed a line during the storm, their urgent exploration of each other driven by the certain knowledge that their time was finite. Now, with execution ships descending, that urgency returned tenfold. "If these are our last hours," she whispered, "I want to remember every moment." Their lips met, no longer tentative but hungry, desperate. Valeria backed toward her sleeping platform, pulling Kai with her. Their uniforms fell away as they rediscovered what they had learned during the long storm night, the differences in their bodies that made each touch a revelation, the similarities that reminded them they were not so alien to each other after all. His hands mapped the contours of her tall, athletic form, tracing the natural cobalt patterns that spiraled across her shoulders and down her spine. She marveled at the heat of his skin, the unfamiliar textures, the way he responded to her touch with sounds that sent shivers through her core. "Is this how it is for humans?" she asked breathlessly as they moved together, finding a rhythm that bridged their different worlds. "This intensity?" "No," he answered, his voice rough with emotion. "This is just us." Time blurred as they clung to each other, as if their bodies could forge a bond strong enough to withstand what was coming. When they finally lay spent and tangled in each other's arms, Valeria felt tears on her cheeks. Another first. Nexarans rarely cried. Their physiology made tears precious and rare. Kai kissed them away, understanding their significance without being told. "We'll find a way," he promised. A sharp chime from her communications panel shattered the moment. Valeria rose, wrapping herself in a robe, and activated the screen. Lieutenant Drez's face appeared, his expression carefully neutral. "Commander, the High Command delegation has arrived early. Admiral Crost requests your immediate presence in the main hangar." He paused, and she could see the conflict in his eyes. "He's asking about the prisoner's whereabouts." Valeria's spine stiffened. "Tell the Admiral I'll bring the prisoner myself. It's my responsibility." When the communication ended, she turned to find Kai already dressing, his face set in lines of resignation. "It seems we're out of time." "No," she said, a plan forming in her mind. "We're out of conventional options." She crossed to the weapons locker and removed not just her standard sidearm, but a second, unregistered pulse pistol. "Put these on," she added, tossing him a set of Nexaran officer's garments that would partially disguise his human features. As Kai dressed, she accessed her terminal one last time, sending a coded message to a contact she'd discovered in the ancient archives, a name connected to records of Nexaran dissenters, those who had opposed the military takeover generations ago. "What are you doing?" Kai asked. "Testing your theory about allies," she replied. "And making a choice I should have made the moment you broke my armor." She turned to him, fully the commander again, but with new purpose. "We're going to give them an execution, Kai. Just not the one they're expecting." The main hangar of the Nexaran command base echoed with the sounds of military precision. Boots on polished floors, the hum of ceremonial energy weapons, the low murmur of high command officers discussing the coming spectacle. Admiral Crost, architect of the most recent campaign against human settlements, stood at the center of it all, his massive frame encased in armor that made Valeria's former protection look modest by comparison. "Commander Valeria," he called out as she entered, Kai walking beside her in Nexaran officer's garb, hands bound before him in restraints that both knew were not fully secured. "I was beginning to wonder if your defeat had affected your commitment to duty." The assembled officers fell silent, watching the exchange with predatory interest. Valeria's humiliation was common knowledge now, a source of whispered amusement among those who had long envied her rapid rise through the ranks. "My commitment is unchangeable, Admiral," she replied, the formal cadence of Nexaran military speech falling easily from her lips even as her mind raced through the final details of their desperate plan. "I bring the prisoner for judgment." Admiral Crost approached, studying Kai with undisguised contempt. "So this is the human who managed what no Nexaran warrior could do." He circled them both, and Valeria forced herself to remain perfectly still, not to track his movement as instinct demanded. "Perhaps we should dissect him after the execution, discover what physical anomaly allowed such a feat. His ability comes from insight, not physical superiority," Valeria said carefully. He saw weakness where none was apparent. The Admiral's eyes narrowed at her choice of words. "An interesting observation, Commander, almost respectful." "I respect all worthy opponents," she replied. "It honors our victory." A subtle movement at the far end of the hangar caught her attention. Maintenance personnel moving with too much purpose, positioning themselves near crucial systems. The message had been received. "Let us proceed," Valeria continued, guiding Kai toward the execution platform that had been prepared at the center of the hangar. "The honor guard awaits." The 12 elite guardians, warriors she had trained with, fought alongside, trusted with her life, stood at attention around the platform. Their expressions were hidden behind ceremonial helmets, but Valeria could read tension in their posture. They, too, had seen her defeated. They wondered if they were witnessing the fall of a legend or the birth of something new. As she and Kai mounted the steps, Admiral Crost addressed the assembled ranks. "Today we witness justice for Nexora. The last human resistance fighter will demonstrate the price of defiance." Valeria positioned Kai at the center of the platform, standing behind him as protocol demanded. Her fingers brushed his bound wrists, a silent signal. 3 seconds. 2. "Warriors of Nexora," she called out, her voice carrying across the hangar with commanding authority. "Before us stands not just a human fighter, but the truth our leaders have concealed for generations." Confusion rippled through the assembly. Admiral Crost turned, rage contorting his features. "Commander Valeria, you forget yourself." But she was already moving, releasing Kai's restraints and drawing both weapons in one fluid motion. Simultaneously, the lights throughout the hangar flickered and died, plunging the space into darkness broken only by emergency illumination. "I forget nothing," Valeria declared as chaos erupted, "including the true history of our world, the history you buried beneath propaganda and endless war." The maintenance workers, dissenters who had received her message, moved with practiced efficiency, sealing the main doors and activating jammers that disrupted the High Command's communications. In the confusion, several elite guardians turned their weapons not on Kai and Valeria, but on Admiral Crost's security detail. "Traitors," the Admiral roared, activating his armor's offensive systems. "Kill them all." The hangar erupted into combat, but not along the lines anyone would have predicted. Years of suppressed doubt and hidden questions exploded into open rebellion as nearly half the Nexaran forces present sided with Valeria. Soldiers who had privately questioned the endless war, officers who had seen discrepancies in official accounts, warriors who had witnessed the commander's integrity firsthand, all found their moment to choose truth over blind obedience. Valeria and Kai fought back to back, her size and strength complementing his speed and precision. Together, they'd moved like a single entity, each anticipating the other's needs without words. When an elite guardian loyal to the Admiral charged them, energy blade extended. Kai deflected the attack, while Valeria delivered a counter-strike that disabled her former comrade without killing him. "We need to reach the communications array," Kai shouted over the din of battle. "Broadcast the archive records to the entire fleet." Valeria nodded, catching sight of Lieutenant Drez across the hangar. Their eyes met, and in that moment, understanding passed between them. Drez had known, perhaps longer than she had, that something was wrong with the official narrative. He turned his weapon on an approaching high command officer, creating an opening for them to reach the exit. "This way," Valeria called, leading Kai through the maintenance passages she had memorized over years of command. Behind them, the sounds of combat continued, but ahead lay their only chance to transform a localized rebellion into something more. The communications center was lightly defended, most security forces having been drawn to the ceremonial execution. The few technicians present surrendered immediately upon recognizing Valeria and seeing the mixed force of humans and Nexarans at her back. "How many ships can we reach?" Kai asked as he worked with remarkable speed at the Nexaran interface, his earlier claim of having studied their systems proven true. "All of them," Valeria replied, entering her override codes. "Every Nexaran vessel, every settlement, every training facility." The Admiral's hubris worked in our favor. He ordered a fleet-wide broadcast of your execution. Their eyes met, blue-green against deep brown, as the system acknowledged her command. In that moment, with alarms blaring and the future uncertain, Valeria saw not an alien or an enemy, but the partner she had never known she was searching for. "Ready?" he asked softly. She nodded, taking his hand in hers. Together, they activated the transmission. Across the Nexaran fleet, on every ship and settlement, screens flickered to life. But instead of an execution, they showed the classified archives, the true history of the human arrival, the manufactured war, the generations of lies. Valeria's voice accompanied the images, clear and unwavering as she explained what they had discovered and the choice she had made. "I believed I fought for Nexara," her recorded message concluded. "I believed humans were our enemy. I was wrong. The true enemy has always been those who would sacrifice truth for power, who would keep us fighting endless wars for their own gain. Today, I choose a different path. Today, I invite you to see beyond the armor we've all been given. Armor designed not to protect us, but to keep us contained, controlled, and divided." In the communications center, surrounded by allies both human and Nexaran, Valeria watched as responses began flooding in from across the fleet. Not all were supportive. Many reflected confusion, disbelief, or outright hostility. But enough. Enough ships acknowledged her message. Enough commanders requested verification of the archives. Enough warriors asked questions that had previously been unthinkable. Admiral Crost's voice broke through on an emergency channel. "This insurrection will be crushed, Commander. You have doomed not just yourself, but everyone who followed you into treason." "No, Admiral," she replied calmly. "I've finally begun to fight the real battle, not against humans, not against myself, but against the lies that have imprisoned us all." She terminated the connection and turned to Kai. "It's done. Whatever happens now, the truth is loose among our people. It cannot be contained again." Kai pulled her close, heedless of the others watching. "This is just the beginning," he murmured against her hair. "The real work, rebuilding, reconciliation, creating a new future, that's still ahead." Valeria smiled, a full and genuine expression that transformed her severe features. "Then we'd better get started." Outside the viewports, the first light of Nexara's twin suns broke over the horizon, casting golden illumination across a world where, for the first time in generations, the possibility of peace had dawned alongside the day. In that moment, as Valeria stood with her human partner and their unlikely alliance of rebels, she understood fully what Kai had meant in their first encounter. She had been fighting herself, fighting against the truth her heart had always suspected, against the person she was meant to become. With her armor and her pride both broken, she had finally found strength in vulnerability, power in choice, and love in the most unexpected of places. And that was a battle worth winning. Retriclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.